We are going to call to order this conditional use hearing. The first thing is, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Brodsky, Rothman,
Rothman here.
Duplacito,
Here.
Vaughn,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Weingrab,
Here.
Henry,
Here.
DePone, Carswell,
Here.
Spiegelman,
Here.
Bowl,
Here.
Schreiber,
Here.
Bowman,
Here.
Vice President Vahey, President Hecker.
Here. Thank you. May we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I am going to call to order this public conditional use hearing, which has been requested for the portion of the solar array and fencing that encroach onto Zone 2 of the Riparian Corridor Conservation District. The array is located as far from Zone 1 as is practical, and I will turn this over to Solicitor Clark to run the hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. This is a conditional use hearing. The applicant is the Sisters of the Redeemer. The property is located at 521 Moredon Road, Abington Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and is identified as Montgomery County tax parcel number 30-00-44765-00-7. This is an application requesting conditional use approval pursuant to section 1503B2C of the Abington Township zoning ordinance to permit public utility transmission lines running along the corridor within the Riparian Corridor Conservation District. The applicant is represented this evening by Joseph Catuzzi, Esquire, and before I turn the hearing over to Mr. Catuzzi, I have three exhibits that I would like to mark. T1 is the notice of the conditional use hearing. T2 is a certification from the Township Zoning Office that the property at 521 Moredon Road, Huntington Valley, PA 19006 was posted on Thursday, August 4th, 2022. And T3 is a photograph of that posting of the property as was referenced in T2. Mr. Catuzzi, in a moment I will turn this over to you. I understand that you will be presenting certain exhibits up on the screen. The board would request that if you have any witnesses who are planning on testifying this evening, that you give a brief summary of their testimony and then make them available to any questions from board members or any members of the public who have requested and who have been granted party status. Do you understand that process, Mr. Catuzzi?
Yes, Michael.
Okay. And before we begin, is there any member of the public who is requesting party status? And what party status indicates is not that you're just going to make public comment, but that you wish to be a party in this hearing to either present testimony or cross-examine any of the witnesses who Mr. Catuzzi would put forward this evening. Is there anyone requesting party status? Are we seeing any hands, Ashley, of anyone indicating they're requesting party status? Okay. So with no one requesting party status, Mr. Catuzzi, you may proceed.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. So again, my name is Joseph Catuzzi, law firm of Stradley Ronan. I represent Sisters of the Redeemer. With me on the line today is Jack Dempster, who serves as the Vice President of Facilities and Construction for the Redeemer, as well as Timothy Bowles, the civil engineer at Bowles Smith for this project, as well as a few representatives from Energy Systems Group, which creates the solar panels. They're Mike Baeza and Kenwar Baha. So this is a really exciting project. And basically what we're doing, and as the board may be aware, is we're proposing to construct a solar array system in the backyard of the Sisters of the Redeemer's Transformation Center over at 521 Moredon Road. Essentially, what it's going to do is it's going to result in a situation where all of the apartment units at Redeemer Village, which is a neighboring property, are going to be turned into renewable solar energy. It's a win-win-win for everybody. The Sisters of the Redeemer, their mission is very much about being good stewards of the environment. And I think Abington Township's a special place in its commitment to environmental stability and also its investment and encouragement of this type of project using renewable energy. So as Mr. Clark had mentioned at the beginning, we are here seeking a conditional use approval for a very specific issue. A very small portion of the project does extend onto the edge of the Zone 2 of the riparian corridor. But what I'd like to do first, just a roadmap, is I'd like to just walk the board through how we got here. So I'm going to share on my screen just a few exhibits that are all public records for you. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So what I'd like to start off with is this began actually via a zoning use application. That application was submitted in August, and it was submitted to be able to secure the use, to secure this actual project on this property. That was submitted in August of last year. That process involved meeting with members of the community, meeting with neighbors, and going through and submitting a fulsome presentation to the zoning hearing board. That is Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2 is the results of that hearing, and on October 20th, the zoning hearing board reviewed the application and voted to approve the proposed use. So the plan that we're seeing tonight has already gone through extensive zoning review and has been approved by the zoning hearing board, and also incorporated comments and dialogue with the neighbors. Exhibit 3 is some additional background approvals. We have here of this earlier in June of this year, we made a submittal of the project to the Montgomery County Conservation District, and we are happy to report to the board that the Conservation District determined that our proposal was adequate and complied with the state's E&S regulations as well as the Clean Streams Law. So that is Exhibit 3. And then Exhibit 4, just to provide the board with a little bit more context, this project has had extensive reviews back and forth between Pannoni, the township's civil engineering firm, as well as Mr. Bowles. And we are happy again to report that we've addressed the comments of the municipal engineer. We've incorporated them into the plan, and we did receive the attached email from Allison Lee of Pannoni expressing support for the application, subject to us coming here today to address the Zone 2 issue for the conditional use. So in just a moment, I am going to hand over the presentation to Mr. Bowles. I will preview for you what he's going to say. But just in the interest of providing the board with an overview of where we are. Where we have on the screen is just an aerial shot taken from a Google Earth site. And 521 Moredon Road, this is the site. Moredon Road extends up and down. Across the street, there are some homes that do line Moredon Road. If we go to the right of the aerial, we go down the street, there's more fields and then forest and then eventually some homes down there. And if we go to the left of the site, this is Redeemer Village. So this is the apartment unit that will go completely from fossil fuels, coal burning fuels, to renewable energy. We also have Holy Redeemer Hospital there for orientation. And then if we go behind, we do have some forest and then a townhome community in the far back. If you can see where my hand is, and I'll try and zoom in, but we are talking about putting the solar panels in the very back of the property. Mr. Bowles is going to explain the thought process behind that site, but it is in a suitable location that will have the least amount of impact. It will not intrude on any existing open space and fields. And also, it's going to be in an area where it's screened in from the trees in the forest in the back, as well as the natural positioning of it kind of behind the existing structures, and as far back it won't be visible from the street line. So again, the history of this project, we've received extensive reviews. We fully cooperated with both the neighbors, received zoning approval, received approval from the Conservation District, and support from the municipal engineer. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what we're actually talking about, because we're talking about it's a slight area into the Zone 2 on the edge of the riparian corridor. So Mr. Bowles is going to basically just provide an overview of what we've done to address that. So I think now would be a good opportunity to have Mr. Bowles sworn in, and then I would like to hand over the presentation so he can review the plan.
Please raise your right hand, Mr. Bowles. Let us know when you do.
Can't hear you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony about the given this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so Tim, I stopped sharing my screen. You should be able to add yours. I guess, Tim, before you go in, can you just tell the board your professional certification so they understand for the record?
Yes, I am a professional engineer licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. Our office, Bowles Smythe Associates, is located in the city of Philadelphia, 2400 Chestnut Street.
Great.
So I'm bringing up on the screen a plan of the entire site. To the left of the plan view portion, you see the solar array where the cursor is shown. I'll trace the perimeter of the site so you can see the extents of the property with that blue line. Moredon Road is along the bottom. Pennypack Creek is along the upper right. Along the left side of the site here is a sewer access road from Moredon Road to the township's pump station down by Pennypack Creek. Zooming into the solar array, you can see this orange shaded area where the Zone 2 is that identifies the encroachment into the Zone 2 with the solar array field. Along this right edge of the field is a proposed fence line. These diagonal gray bars are the array panel rows. You can see that over on the right side of each one in this zone, they encroach into the Zone 1, into the Zone 2 area, and the fence line generally follows the edge of the riparian boundary between Zone 1 and Zone 2. We have located the array at this location on the site because it's, from an engineering perspective, the optimal location on the site. It's an open field and has been for many decades. It's a maintained mowed meadow, so no clearing of wooded areas is required to install the array here. This location also takes advantage of the sewer access road and existing access roads so that no new road and related infrastructure or disturbance is required to create access to the site. The site is located along a ridge line between the two wooded areas that provides relatively mild grades in the area, so no regrading of the site is required in order to install the panel array. The foundations for the panels will be driven posts into the existing soil, so there is very, very limited disturbance associated with installing the panel array. There is over here where the access road enters the site, there is a small area that does require regrading for an access area and for an equipment pad that will be constructed. But generally, the meadow area is intended to be left undisturbed by the installation of these panels. The array is located over 600 feet from, the beginning of the array is located over 600 feet from Moredon Road and 35 feet down slope. The back end is several hundred feet farther and 75 feet down slope of Moredon Road. So it should be pretty difficult to see and easy to screen if there is any visibility. So those are the high points of why we selected this portion of the site to locate the solar array. Any questions?
Commissioner Schreiber?
Hi, I'm not sure if this question is for you or not, but I have two questions about the project in general. So one is about maintenance. Who is responsible for, if something gets broken, doesn't work anymore, gets, whatever. So that's my first question, and then after I get an answer to that, I'll ask my second question.
So Commissioner, this is Joe Catuzzi, Council. That question will certainly be addressed. We do have a representative who has some more technical experience with this, with the actual array. So we can introduce him now to answer your question, or perhaps we could reserve that for when he just addresses the kind of technical aspects of these panels.
Okay, so my second question also might not be, this might not be the right time for it, but I'm just going to ask it anyway, and you can put it somewhere else if it needs to be. So, and that's about, since it's going to be near the meadow area, is there any effect on wildlife? I know it might not be a big enough project, but I know that some larger solar panel type things affect bird migration patterns. And so I'm wondering if there's any kind of effect on wildlife with these panels. Other than that, I think the project's a good project, and I think it's great that there's going to be energy that's going to go to the other buildings and stuff. I think that's fantastic. I just want to make sure it's all, good environmentally in other ways as well.
Yeah. I think, to answer that question, again, this went through, when it went through the zoning hearing board, we did discuss, no adverse impacts in the community. To the extent the environment, we can happily, I think this may be discussed later in the presentation, that this does provide a lot of environmental benefits. In terms of, again, specific environmental aspects to the Zone 2 area where they're being placed. Tim, this was submitted for compliance with the ENS and the Clean Streams Act, right?
Yes, and there were no threatened or endangered species identified in the area. And again, one of the reasons for selecting this site is that it doesn't require any clearing of large wooded areas or any significant regrading. So the impact on the existing terrain is very minimal. I can't speak to bird migration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, President Hecker. Looking at the solar arrays, it's not clear how tall they are or how wide they are, and I'm a little concerned about shadow on the vegetation below the solar arrays and what that means for in terms of soil erosion down the road, as we are looking at a riparian barrier or buffer right there. So have we considered the vegetation that's going under these things and how we're going to counter any potential erosion effects and how that might affect the riparian buffer?
Yes, we have, and the majority of the encroachment itself it will be open meadow. The fence runs along the edge, the right edge of the encroachment, and or the Zone 2, and the solar panels encroach only in this area. The remainder of the area will continue to be open meadow field, which will be mowed, we expect quarterly. So there will be dense ground cover. Shade tolerant grasses are going to be used under, we're not disturbing the existing vegetation with the installation. It may be necessary to supplement the existing grass with some more shade tolerant species if we see that it's stressed. The panels will sit on the low end, I believe it's 3 feet, and on the high end, as much as 7 or 8 feet. This would be all of the panels slope to the south to maximize the sun exposure. This would be the low end. There are 2 panel sections sloping up at roughly 45 degrees, and this would be the high end. There is stormwater runoff from each of the 2 rows of panels in a set. There are splash pads being installed at the base to control the erosion beneath the panels. So there should be no issues of erosion on the site. We are also installing level spreaders parallel to the contours to make sure that any flows that might be concentrated are redistributed into the meadow downslope. Does that answer your question?
That does. I guess my only follow-up question then is, going back to the shade-resistant vegetation, at what point would you be able to make a determination as to whether or not that would need to be planted, since it does sound like we're using the existing vegetation on site as much as possible right now?
That determination would need to be made in the growing season following the installation of the panels.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Tim, one other thing I'd just like to point out, I just want to make it clear, and again, section 1508B of the code does talk about an additional mitigation area. Can you just explain that to the board, the area that we are complying with, because this is a conditional use and it is allowing subject to this mitigation plan. And can you just walk us through what you're proposing?
Yes, I apologize for.
No need to apologize.
Right here where the cursor is on the left side of the screen is the encroachment area. And the mitigation requirement is to provide on the same side of the stream an equivalent area to be dedicated as a protected additional riparian buffer area. And that is this zone here. So the encroachment is the 22,660 square feet, and the mitigation area is immediately downslope on the same side of the riparian corridor, 23,210 square feet.
Okay. Are there other comments or questions from members of the board? Okay, hearing none. Solicitor Clark, next steps.
Mr. Catuzzi, do you have any additional witnesses?
So I did want to just run through, and I did want to get to that question about maintenance. So, what I'd propose is introducing Mike Baeza from Energy Systems, who can provide just a very brief overview. We'll run through some of the questions. We'll definitely talk about the maintenance and a few other issues just for the record. Okay.
Please raise your right hand, Mr. Baeza. Do you solemnly swear or affirm testimony about the given this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you can state and spell your full name, please.
My name is Mike, M-I-K-E, Baeza, B as in boy, A-Y-E-S-A.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Mike, so can you just state your title and what you do?
I work for Energy Systems Group. I'm the Eastern Pennsylvania market lead, so I'm responsible for the Eastern Pennsylvania market and all our projects in this area.
Great. And Mike, you have personal knowledge about how the system operates, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I want to run through just a few very quick questions. To the best of your knowledge and your personal experience, these do not, the project would not create any type of odors, right?
No, it wouldn't.
And they're actually inherently designed to reduce pollution, right?
Correct.
And to the extent that we have an impact on the community, it's a positive impact. We're moving towards clean energy, right?
Clean energy and a reduction in greenhouse gases.
Great. And it's also good for public utilities, right?
It is. What's going to happen here is, since we're putting it right to the grid, we'll also have some grid stabilization that will help the grid to have smoother power.
Great. And there's no lighting for the site here for lighting issues associated with the project?
No.
Great. And in terms of their security, they'll be safe and sound behind a secure fence?
Perimeter, the array has a complete perimeter fence.
Great. And the system doesn't produce any noise, right?
No, pretty quiet way to produce power.
Excellent. In terms of traffic generation, and I guess this goes towards maintenance too, but there's no employees stationed here, right? It's just they stand alone, absorb the sun, no need to have an employee station there?
That is correct.
Great. And in terms of maintenance, to my understanding, would it be correct to say that there may be quarterly check-ins for someone to come and check in on them?
Yes, we have a year warranty and maintenance program on the array. Then it will be transferred to Redeemer Village under a subcontracted agreement. Typically, what you'll see is 4 checks a year, and the array is always going to be remotely monitored through a data acquisition system.
Great. And then you agree, you heard what Mr. Bowles said just a few moments ago? About discussing Mr. Bowles' presentation summary of the plan?
Yes, we've worked with him extensively on this project.
Great. And you agree that this is a suitable location for the project, right?
Correct. A lot of time and effort went into the arrangement and placement of this array.
Great. So Michael, Clark, at that point, I guess we'll open it up to questions for Mr. Baeza. And just to preview, the only other thing on my agenda after this is just a few brief overviews of some public records, planning documents.
Okay, are there any comments or questions for Mr. Baeza from members of the board?
There are no additional questions, Mr. Catuzzi, so you may move on.
Great. Okay, excellent. So what I'd like to do for the board, I just want to run through very briefly a few planning documents just to show that. Sorry about that, my light went out. So in terms of planning materials, what I'd like to show is Exhibit 6 here. It's a public record. This is from Montgomery County's website. It's the 2040 Montgomery County Shared Vision Plan. I just want to point out to the board that one of the planning prerogatives that Montgomery County has is both for the county to move towards green energy and also to incentivize citizens to move towards green energy, and also for local municipalities to look for ways to promote renewable energy sources. And specifically, that's on page 36 and 37 of Montgomery County's Shared Vision Comprehensive Plan. Exhibit 7 is actually an ordinance or a meeting agenda which documents the township joining into the Climate Collaborative of Greater Philadelphia. That was back in 2019. And I think that Abington's been a real leader in this regard, hand in hand with Montgomery County and moving towards sustainable energy for its residents. What I have attached in Exhibit 6 is that resolution. Again, this is just further demonstrating Abington's very responsible commitment to promoting sustainable energy consumption within its township. Again, one of the recitals in the resolution was recognizing that in order to accomplish this goal of moving towards renewable energy, there should be collaboration between regional, local organizations and communities to work towards ways to procure wind, solar energy. So this plan is very consistent with the example that Abington has set. Exhibit number 8, this is just an excerpt directly from the current comprehensive plan. It's page 1-4 of the comprehensive plan. And in terms of natural resource green spaces, one of the objectives is to promote the conservation of water and energy within the township. And we're proud to state that this project will help accomplish that. And lastly, I know there was some discussion about this earlier, but just wanted to point out for the board that one of the draft, I know the Abington Township Comprehensive Plan is going through a review process, but one of the draft chapters for Chapter 9 does address energy sustainability, and it does note, at least on page 22 of the draft, all of the tremendous efforts that Abington has taken to move towards renewable energy. There are some recommendations specifically on page 28 of the draft One of the recommendations is expanding incentives for the use of renewable energy systems in new land developments. And also on page 29 of the draft, a comment is to reduce investments in fossil fuel infrastructure in favor of clean and renewable energy infrastructure. So I think with that, I'd like to move, Michael, just for the admission of these exhibits. They're public records, so I'd ask them to be admitted into the record.
They'll all be admitted.
Great. And I'd like to thank the board for its time tonight. We're happy to answer any other questions, and we'd also like to ask for your support. And we see this as a win-win-win. It's a win for the Sisters of the Redeemer. It's a win for the residents who live in Abington, also the folks over at Redeemer Village, to have now over 200 units being fueled by renewable energy is quite an accomplishment. So it's a win for everybody, and we're happy and hopeful for your support here tonight.
So, Mr. Catuzzi, that concludes your case?
That does, Michael.
President Hecker, as no one has asked for or been granted party status and Mr. Catuzzi has closed his case, we should close the record right now, and then ask for public comment. After public comment, if there is any board comment on the application, that would be appropriate, and then a vote would be taken to either approve or deny the conditional use application.
Okay. So closing the record involves just stating the...
You make a motion to close the record.
Okay.
That can be a voice vote. It doesn't need to be a roll call.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to close the record on this matter.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The record is closed, and we will now open it up for public comment. I know there was a question from a gentleman at the previous meeting. I want to make sure, if he's still there, that we are able to address that. Yes.
EB, you're unmuted.
Fantastic. Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Eric
Yeah,
Henning.
could you state your name, please,
Sure,
sir?
I just did. My name is Eric Henning.
Thank you.
I live at 626 Moredon Road, directly across from the gravel access road. And I'm curious as to the general amount of traffic that would be created in installing this project, and if it is going to utilize exclusively the gravel road that goes to the 635 water station, and what type of maintenance is required, and also how those conduit lines are connected to the village and to the Pico, Pico station, or the hooked up with the Pico power. Can you give me some understanding of that, please?
So, I'm sorry, I did not get your last name.
Henning, H-E-N-I-N-G.
I'm still not hearing it.
Henning.
Okay. Mr. Henning, when I asked in the beginning if anyone wanted party status to be able to ask questions of the witnesses, did you hear me when I stated that at the beginning of the hearing?
No, I did not.
Okay. The record is closed, and the fact that Mr. Henning did not hear that we were asking for party status, it was stated during the open meeting, during the hearing. If the board wishes, it could ask Mr. Catuzzi if he would permit one of his witnesses to answer that question, but they are not under any obligation to answer questions now that the record's been closed.
Okay, thank you, Solicitor Clark. I think we should ask if they would be willing. Mr. Catuzzi, would you be willing to answer the question that has been posed, or have someone answer it who is with you?
Sure. I'll defer to Tim Bowles to kind of go into the technical details of that.
Okay,
Tim,
thank you.
I believe it was about the connections and.
Yeah, it's my understanding that Pico will be installing a new pole on the existing pole line on the 521 Moredon Road side of Moredon Road, and that the conduit lines, run next to the existing gravel road, back to the solar array. There are no conduit trenches that will be cut across Moredon Road. When PECO comes in to do their work, which will involve installing a pole and connecting the power from the existing lines on Moredon Road to the conduits, they may need to, for a day or two or maybe three, block the one lane of Moredon Road while they're doing that work. It's a short-term work. They would be augering a hole in the ground and then dropping the pole in and then working from bucket trucks to make the connections. The existing gravel road that's there can support the traffic for the deliveries of the materials back to the solar panel array field. There should not be any disturbance there associated with this solar array. There will be a conduit trench dug from off of Moredon Road all the way back to the array. That should not affect traffic in any way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, so the conduit lines, the lines themselves will be underground to the pole on Moredon Road from the solar panel, is that correct?
Correct. Everything
Okay.
will be underground except for the new pole that's installed. There will be a transformer, I believe, or a disconnect of some sort at the base of the pole, a small cabinet.
At the pole on Moredon Road that is to be installed for the junction, the base, is that correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, we lose a lot of power out here on a regular basis thanks to PECO, and we're not anxious to have that happen anymore. So, and it is a very busy road, so I'm curious about the location of that power outlet and also how disruptive it would be directly in front of my house insofar as the installation. Would they be trucks that would be going down, and you anticipate that? And I do appreciate your time and this information. That would be something that you would anticipate would be done within the loading of that equipment within a short period of time, 2 or 3 days, as you said?
Yes, but it could be spread out over time. And what my expectation from just my observations in the past is that they will come out as soon as they know exactly where the pole needs to be. They'll come out with an auger, drill a hole in the ground, drop the pole in, and set up the pole for the wires to come up it and the T-bars on the top. If you look out your window, I think there's a pole laying in the grass right now. It'll be approximately at that location, midway between the other two poles that are out there.
Right, okay. Yes, I know where that is, and there should be no disruptions to the existing power grid that we have with the pole with your installation. Is that right?
I would not expect there to be any outages associated with that. I believe it's connecting, and Mike, maybe you can chime in. It would be connecting to the high voltage, not the secondary, so it would.
You will not see any power interruptions.
Okay. All right, I appreciate the information. And everything is underground basically up into that pole. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay. Great. I appreciate the information and you're taking my question tonight.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rooney, do you wish to make a public comment? Please come forward.
I don't live by there, so I'll ask you the questions and just out of curiosity. First, just for does the township invest any money in this? Is there any taxpayer money going into this? It's just strictly the Sisters of the Holy Redeemer. And that's the first question. And the second one is, I thought I heard Mr. Catuzzi say that it's going to be powering the Redeemer Village. Does that mean they're going to be disconnected from the normal grid? Or that's only going to, because that would be, have to have a storage facility then also. Those are just two.
Okay.
I was just curious about it, and it's not that important.
Well, as to the first question, this is private application that's being reviewed and vetted by the township. And as to the second, I don't know the answer to that. We can get the answer if you'd like. Okay. Thank you. Okay, being that there is no further public comment, Solicitor Clark, we would then move to board comment before taking a vote?
Board comment if there is any, and then a vote.
Okay. Are there any comments by members of the board? I do see Commissioner Weingrad's hand up, so we will turn it to him.
Thank you, President Hecker. I think maybe this is a question for the solicitor. This is a conditional use hearing. Is it the only reason that we're here for conditional use is because they want to use part of that riparian corridor?
That is correct, Commissioner Weinberg. That's the only reason we're here.
Okay, and so otherwise this project would be by right? They'd be able to do it?
I think they'll still have to go through land development. So they'll still be back in front of you again for land development. But the only reason, is mostly
Okay.
by right, yes.
I don't think you have your mic on, but I think you said something about land development. But my next question would be, does this still have to go through land development?
I believe it does. I believe it does.
Okay. And my next question is for Cal. I mean, in your review of the materials in this presentation, do you see, is this thing going to be hidden from the neighbors surrounding this property?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, this site is situated as such that it slopes backwards. So the location of these solar panels or solar arrays is downhill from where Moredon Street is. So it is not easily visible from the street.
Okay. So none of the neighborhoods, no one's going to see it or hear it or smell it or anything?
Well, I would never say never, but it's not going to be easily visible from a lot of the areas, yeah. And just to clarify something, yes, this project is subject to land development. They do actually right now have a prelim final application at the township. Once this conditional use moves forward, then they will have to come back in front of the board for the actual recommendation on the prelim final application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingrad. Are there any further comments or questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I will make a motion then to approve the conditional use as requested by the applicant. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The conditional use is approved. And that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone.